Stick around if you want to learn all about top of wall and base of wall constraints in Revit 2021. Hey there, I'm the Revit Man and welcome to my new tutorial. In this video, I'm going to show you how to constrain the top and base of walls, as well as manipulate the extension and offset parameters so that you can create better walls. Before we dive into the actual tutorial, take a second to hit that subscribe button so that you get notified when I upload new videos. Alright, so let's dive into Revit. For this tutorial, we're going to start with the wall tool. So you can select the wall tool or you can type in WA to initiate the keyboard shortcut for wall. We're going to go over here to the properties palette, and this time we're going to go and select this brick on metal stud wall. And the parameter, or the area that we're going to be looking at first, is this area here of the options bar. So we're going to set the first wall that we're going to draw. We're going to specify the height, and then we're going to leave the top constraint here then to unconnected. And let's change that to a 15-foot tall wall. So I'm going to go here and draw our wall. Now we're going to go ahead and draw a second wall. This time we're going to change the top constraint then to level 2. Alright, and now we're going to draw 2 more walls, and this time we're going to explore the depth parameter. So again, depth, unconnected, I don't know, maybe this time we'll do 20 feet. And then on the last wall here that we are going to draw, we're going to set the level to top of footing. Alright, so you don't see much in this view. So in order for us to see what we just did, we're going to have to go to a section view. So we're up here in the quick access toolbar here. You're going to click on section, and then we're going to go and draw a section view. Now there's multiple ways that you can actually get to this section view. You can go over here to the project browser and double click on section 1. You can double click on the head, or the way that I typically do it, and this is just my workflow, figure out what works best for you and go with there, is I typically right click on it and say go to view. That's the way that just typically works for me. So I'm going to go ahead and change a couple of settings here so we can better see what we're doing. So I'm going to uncrop the view, turn off the crop region, and then we're going to set the view define so that we can see our different layers. Now you see the 4 walls we drew. So let's look at this first wall. So you're going to notice here that the base constraint here is level 1. We drew the wall in our level 1 floor plan view, so it defaulted the base constraint to the level of the view that we were in. Okay, and now if we look at the top constraint then of the wall, we'll see that it was unconnected and it gives us the height that we had entered in before. So now if I want to change the height of this wall, I can just go in and type in something else, or we can drag this, or use the temporary dimensions then to go ahead and change what that unconnected height of the wall actually is. So let's take a look at the second wall that we drew. You'll notice that this one again has the same base constraint, but this time it says up to level 2. So it's constrained to level 2, and we cannot adjust this unconnected height. So then how do you change the height of this? Well, if we look at level 2 here, it's set to 10 feet. If we go and change this then to 12 feet, and then take a look at our wall. Sorry, I'm going to pull these in so that they're a little closer to what we're drawing. Alright, so now if you take a look at it, our height of the wall is 12 feet, and it's still constrained to level 2. So if I'm moving level 2 up and down, it changes the wall height with it. So whenever you draw a wall, I would say always go and constrain it on the top and the base of it, just for that functionality of being able to move a level and it moves with it. It'll save you a lot of time when there's a change in the level height and you have to go back and change how all your walls are associated and what their heights are, where everything's located. It's a nightmare, trust me. I've done it before. So always go and constrain your walls to the top and the base. So then how do you handle, if you wanted this wall to be 5 feet taller than level 2, how do you go and constrain that? So to do that, that's where the base offset and the top offset parameters come in. So the base offset obviously moves the base of the wall up, and the top of constraint moves the top of the wall up. So if we want to change the top height to kind of match what this unconnected height wall does, we can go in and change this top offset then to 5 feet. And again, on this wall, you can just drag it and notice that the top offset changes, but it still stays constrained to level 2. And because of that, when I go and change this level height again, you'll notice that it maintains that top of wall offset that we had previously set, but does not lose its association with the level. And same thing works for the base offset. Now you can set this as a negative number, so you want it -1 foot, so that it drops it a little bit below the floor level. That's totally fine, but it remains constrained to the base level. So how would you go or what applications on an actual building project that you're working on would you use the top and base offsets? So typically the base offset, there's a couple of instances where I use it quite often. The first is when I'm putting a wall on top of a concrete curb. So maybe the foundation wall sticks up a little bit higher. They created a curb on that foundation wall or on the slab that's 4 to 6 inches higher than the finished floor elevation. And this might be because of they're trying to keep liquid or moisture or whatever from getting to that wood stud wall. So I'll go and use the base offset then to set my wood construction wall like this up to that higher elevation on top of that curb. So another application then that I typically use the base offset for is if I'm creating a bulkhead in an interior circumstance. So if you don't know what a bulkhead is, typically it's used between at ceiling transition. So you have two ceilings at different heights, and you want to essentially frame in a wall that spans the difference between those ceiling heights. So to do this, I'll go and set my base of wall offset to 7 feet, 8 feet, whatever you need it to be at, and the top constraint stays the same. I'm not changing that. It's just this base offset, and I go ahead and draw that wall at that base offset, and I end up setting this the height of this bulkhead. Now for the top offset parameter, typically this is going to be used for doing a parapet wall. So you have a flat roof, you want the exterior wall to go up higher than your roof, you set the top offset to create that parapet. And the same thing works for any of the walls that were associated with depth. So what you'll notice here is the top constraint is actually set. So you drew it depth, so when we were drawing it at level 1, that was actually the top of the wall. So you're going to notice then that the top constraint is set to level 1. Now, the difference here between specifying the height and the depth is that instead of an unconnected height as you had for the first wall, the unconnected depth actually manifests itself as a base offset from that same level. So it's not a true unconnected height. There's actually does assign a base constraint. It just automatically goes and sets the offset to what you set the unconnected depth to be. And the same thing here as with wall 2 is you'll notice the top and base constraints are set to the appropriate levels. Alright, so now if we select the wall again, you'll notice that this base extension distance and top extension distance are grayed out. So how do we get those to not be grayed out so that we can actually change that extension? So to do that, we're going to go to Edit Type, and then we're going to go to this Edit the Structure of the wall. If you don't have this preview pane for the wall, you can go down here to this preview button and show that. And then if you're not seeing the wall in section, down here at the base there's this view. You can set it, if you're in the floor plan view, you can go and set it then to the section view. And it has to be in section for us to adjust what we need to. Alright, so we're going to zoom in then on the base of this wall. And then we're going to go over to this Modify button. And then if you look here, we can hover over the base of the wall, and you'll notice each of the layers kind of highlights blue. So if I select for the brick, there's a lock icon shows up, and you want to unlock this. But if I just go and click on the lock here when it's blue, nothing happened. It's still actually locked. And this is where it gets a little finicky on this thing in particular, but you got to make sure that it turns this tan color before you unlock it. Now you can actually see that that layer is actually unlocked. And you want to do the same thing then for the airspace layer. Wait until it turns tan and then unlock it. Now the one thing to note when you're doing this modify is that any of these layers that you're unlocking, they have to be adjacent to each other. So I couldn't go now and unlock this layer here and expect it to work in Revit. They have to be adjacent to each other. So now we're going to go to the top of the wall, and we're going to do the same thing then for the 3 layers on the interior side. Then once you've unlocked all the applicable layers that you want, you can go ahead and click OK, and then click OK again. Alright, so now what you'll notice then is that this base constraint distance and this top extension distance have now been ungrayed out. So you can now adjust those parameters. So I can go ahead and go in here and change my base constraint to be, or my base extension to be -8 inches, and then the top extension I want to change to be 2 feet. So you'll notice then also over here in this, the actual wall, you'll see 2 arrows, and you now have the ability to, one of them changes the base or top offset parameter, and the other one then changes the top extension and the base extension parameters. So you can see here that, yeah, the base I dropped it down 8 inches, and the top I extended it up 2 feet. So when would you actually use these on an actual project? I think for the base extension distance is used by far more than any of the others. And this is because it is common practice when doing a masonry type wall like this with a brick veneer that you create what's called a brick ledge. And that brick ledge is typically 8 inches or more below the finished floor elevation, and then the brick and airspace layer then extend down to that brick ledge level. So if this is your floor level, this would be your brick ledge level. And it's just a quick and easy way to set your masonry walls to, by default, have this extension down so that when you're drawing these, they end up looking right when you're in your sections and in your elevations, that you have that extension already in there and modeled. Now the top extension, when I was putting together this tutorial, I had no idea how this is used in an actual project. I never had done it before until this last week. I had a project at work where I needed to use this top extension. And the instance where I used it was actually at a parapet condition where we did not want the exterior finish to extend all the way up to the top of the parapet wall. And in our case, we were doing a trim board at this location instead. So we were creating a change in plane, and we were putting a trim profile here and keeping the brick at a lower elevation. So that wraps up this tutorial. That's the basics for top of wall and base of wall constraints, offset, and extension parameters. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this one, make sure to subscribe to the channel. And if you had any comments or questions about any of the content I covered, please make sure you leave that in the comments below. Thanks for watching.